is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 148. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E. Sitting here on a Sunday afternoon, Austin, Texas. Judging by the face you are making right now, I think I know how you're going to answer the question that I always ask to start off an episode. How you feeling, my friend?
Hey, we're feeling a little rough today. That's for sure. Feels like, woke up from a nightmare and then you're rehashing all the things that took place in that terrible dream, and you realize it's a real thing, and you're actually sitting here looking at an absolute ass whooping that took place last night at the hands of a much superior team to us. So I think that is something that I can kind of fall back on. We lost to a better team. There is no shame in that. There is some shame in getting drubbed 5-1, and the type of antics and overall demeanor that was displayed at points in that game that were quite disappointing. I know that, there's a lot that goes into where we're sitting at in regards to the table, the fact that this is only one game. And, we're looking at, we're starting to get to the point where it's like we might be in the danger zone, because we're talking about June here. We know the guys we're going to be without. We know how thin we're going to be. We look at the schedule. We see what's coming up. And, even though this is just one game, we are definitely approaching a very difficult and challenging period for this club. So I'm looking forward to just getting into this and getting through it. And then, trying to look at the larger pictures, where we're sitting at in the table, what's yet to come. And, maybe taking a good look at the first half of the season as a whole and what it looks like.
Yeah. So we got to go through the 5-1 drubbing, right?
Gotta do
That's
it.
what we do here. Win, loss, or draw. We're going to talk about it. I'm with you. I think taking a good look at the bigger picture, because we are at the halfway mark here, and there are certainly more than one positive that we can take out of the first 17 games here in 2024. But I think also having the perception on what is coming is also something to discuss. So we'll get into all of that. Best keeper in the world, last business day, a little bit of the nonsense at the end as well. And before we jump into today's episode, just want to remind you all, if you have not yet, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us grow the show. You can do the same thing if you are watching on the YouTube channel by hitting that subscribe button. You can also hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And on this episode, hit that thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. Also, a programming note. Last year, when we're in season, we go twice a week, right? We do Sundays, we do Wednesdays. And one thing we did not do last year was take any days off, right? And we have not missed a week here since we began the North End podcast back in August of 22. And we're not going to miss a week here, but unless there is breaking news that we absolutely have to get together to talk about in the midweek, we are going to take a bye week here on Wednesday and be back next Sunday. So just wanted to put that out there. If you're in the midweek wondering, where's my North End podcast? We're going to take this Wednesday off, kind of give ourselves that grace. And it is a little bit unfortunate, that we're doing this right after the worst loss, because I don't want that perception to look like that. We had this on the schedule. But I think also just maybe good meant for our mental health to take a step away from this team after last night. So we will be back on Sunday, but just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, got to make people ready,
Yeah, let's get into this one from last night. We had the injury report pop up, and wasn't the worst thing we could have seen. You had a questionable tag, Andriusi. Also a questionable tag on Ethan Finley, which had happened, kind of off and on over the last month or so. And he had played through the Q tag. He had played, then popped back up on the injury report and continued to play through that.
Yep.
And we did not have John Gallagher on the injury report. So he was available and ready to go. Ultimately, when we get to the lineup on Saturday evening, no Driussi, no Ethan Finley, but we did get John Gallagher starting. So we had Stuver in net, Galley, Cascante, Väisänen, Biru, and Kolmanich with what looked like on paper a back five with Biru playing that left center back slot. Alex Ring wearing the armband, Danny Pereira, Johan Valencia, Diego Rubio, and Hodder Obrian. Bench had the double keeper, Bersano and Cleveland, and then field players Heinzike, Jimenez, Hedges, Wolf, Vodre, and Zardis. What were your thoughts, injury report thoughts on the lineup? Certainly you didn't think we're going to get drubbed by 4 goals there.
That's for sure. Not surprised about 10. Great to see Johnny back, healthy, ready to go. Very concerned with Ethan. Really don't know what's going on there. Like you said, he's played a couple of times. He's gone back on the injury report, then to not have him at all last night. And I think that really hurt us more than, it looks on paper. I don't think he makes up a 4-goal deficit in this complete and utter domination by RSL. But I do think it impacted the lineup that we threw out there and how we were going to approach that game and how quickly that thing went out the window. I still can only really focus on what 10's status is going forward, because as we mentioned on the last episode, this team can go back to the absolute Stone Age if he is not out there. And we saw that on full display last night. So my focus remains there. I'm still hoping that he is not too dinged up. And this Finley situation needs some more clarification. Again, he's 34. He's getting up there. So, that wear and tear starts to add up. But yes, I was not expecting a 5-1 ass whooping coming our way last night.
Yeah. And again, we can talk about just this lineup, I guess, kind of as we go as well. I was a little bit excited to see it on paper, not in the sense of who was in and who was out, but seemingly shifting things, formation wise. We talked about that in the midweek episode. I just wanted to see, I wanted to see again, because around this time last year, where we were also missing number 10, we found a little bit of success with that formation change. It did not really play out even before that first goal goes in. I'm left scratching my head a little bit here, and I think I just need to leave it up to people who have more soccer knowledge than I do to tell me exactly what we were doing, what the triggers were for Kolmanich to bomb up that left side and ultimately do nothing, because he was playing left wing more often than he was playing wing back in my eyes. But then there were times too when we were in our shell and he looked like he was in a back line of 5. And then as we kind of progressed through the first half, and even before that first goal, like I said, then it looked like at times a 4-4-2 with him playing down there in that left channel. So anything else for you before we get into this one?
I mean, I'm right there with you. I was actually pretty excited about the shape that I thought we were going to be taking when I saw the roster come out on paper, because I thought that we would probably have to get creative in some way, shape, or form in order to find any sort of success versus this very talented club. And I thought having 5 back would be a great way for us to employ the bend but don't break method that we have used on the road to scour up some points here and there. With Kolmanich, on my rewatch, he is just continuously getting pinned back by the aggressive play of RSL, their high press, and how fast they were on the wings. It never looked right. It never looked like we really knew where guys were supposed to be or what they were supposed to be doing. So, I mean, the best laid plans of mice and men, and we went out there and just definitely did not execute. And even if we did execute, still no excuse for, the result that came out of that, as well as the fact that we were just thoroughly outplayed. And we tried this 5 back, potentially, shifting kind of formation and form to try to get something going. And just appears that it wasn't probably the right call in this situation. Not that I know that there necessarily was a right move to make here, given the limitations, given 10's injury, given the opponent. So, definitely disappointed in how it looked. I definitely wanted to look a little more cohesive, make a little more sense. And there was times where I was just left completely scratching my head with Komanich floating kind of in no man's land, then having to track back, can't get back because Julio and Gomez are just speed demons and they're just killing him up the sides and everything like that. So it was interesting, but not what we needed on the night by any means.
Well, let's go through this match here in the third minute. MLS struggling with the win probability there on the screen. I made the joke to you. Did they come poll you for the win probability here? Because they fire it off in the third minute. It's 30% each way with a 40% draw. I was like, that looks like how the North End treats win probability on the road. 16th minute here. Real Salt Lake controlling most of everything in that first 15 minutes. But Austin on the back end really hasn't come close to breaking yet. And this is something that differed from my perception of the match last night after, the not 100% sober watch of the game live. And then you fire it up this morning and, Stuver makes a nice save on a Luna shot in the first 8 minutes or so. And then they get another little breakaway where I think it was a Julio shot at the top of the box that our own Julio Cascante gets in front of and blocks. And, just more of that stuff that we've seen from not only the road matches, more often on the road, but just a solid defense that without 10, right? We had about a month of that to start the season. Bending a little bit, but certainly not breaking. And then Austin actually has – sorry, go ahead, E.
I mean, yes, I agree with you there, but the thing that was really, really concerning to me and just showed up more often than it needed to is that we were just completely unable to have any sort of possession versus their high press after we were stopping them in these types of situations that we have found ourselves in throughout the course of this season in road games where we're trying to allow the other team to shoot outside the box, get these deflections, rely on Stuver. But I mean, I texted the Verde Pendant boys and said, stat popped up. We had 4 completed passes.
Yeah.
And
around this time, right?
Yes, it's pretty much right around this time. And, that is just not a recipe for success. So we were unable, even though we were alleviating the pressure, we were unable to get out of it. And it just became more and more cumulative. And it just eventually felt like it was coming. I did not expect for it to come where it did. But I mean, it didn't look right. Even in the games like versus Seattle, Vancouver, what have you, we were still able to get past that first line of press, and we were not able to do that last night. And I think that is probably a factor in how the shape took place. Like I think, or a factor of what the shape looked like, because we were not able to get any sort of continuity between just stringing any sort of passes together.
I think it reminded me of 2 things, specifically the first half and really the entirety of the game on my second example here. I think this half is about the same as that Minnesota first half, but RSL is better, specifically in the attack because we struggle with the press. We've known that really throughout this club's short history. We struggled with Minnesota's press, which kind of surprised us there as they're playing that different style here this year in the opener. So to your point, that really killed us at the again, it continues throughout this first half here. And not unlike, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, not unlike that Minnesota game, I think that things settled down a little bit in the second half. Again, different score line. So things were kind of bound to settle down naturally there as RSL takes their foot off the gas a little bit. But then it also struck me as like, this is the worst case scenario on a road match to the best case scenario that happened against Seattle in that second match of the year, where we don't have any possession. They have a million shots. We can't generate anything when the game is in the balance. And Seattle, we have a little bit of luck on our side. We bend it, but don't break, and we get out of there with a point. And this was just, we broke from 15 minutes on at almost every turn.
Yes, it was a complete polar opposites of both of those games.
So here in the 16th minute, Austin is actually having their best passage of play going forward, which again was not a high bar to clear in the first 15 minutes of this one, but we get a throw after we were on a 4-on-3 break that they cleared out for that throw to the right of their penalty area. John Gallagher, long throw right to Cascante's head, which is exactly what we want. He gets that deflection, but McMath comes out off his line, scoops it up out of the air, and then he tries to go quickly to Chicho on the long throw. Stuver is up, steps up to clear it just inside Austin's half, but he clears it straight out of bounds over towards the Salt Lake bench area where Pablo Mastroeni, their head coach, kind of just grabs it as it skips out of bounds, throws it to one of their players who throws it into Chicho. He turns just inside the Salt Lake half, takes a peek up, sees Brad Stuver off his line. And then to me, obviously making a shot from midfield is impressive over any keeper. But the fact that he only takes 2 steps to get into this shot and just buries it, I mean, inches away from perfect if it wasn't perfect already. Yeah. And it's 1-0. And for them to break the deadlock like that is what felt like the first of so many gut punches on the night, but and also just like extra gut punch, because any Brad Stuver detractors in terms of his all-star candidacy are just going to point right to this.
Yeah, Stuver's fault. For sure.
Yes.
I don't know why he's necessarily, it looks like he's a little upset at some guys after he had some words with Julio after a aggressive kick out of the net. It was a mistake for sure.
There wasn't, sorry to interrupt.
No.
I could see where he may be frustrated with nobody stepping to Chicho at midfield. But again, he's at midfield.
Yeah, again, and we're also not pulling out. You know, I mean, like we were trying to be compact in our form and our shape, and their best player is now standing at half field. It's like, you know what, like we're not going to press them up there. Yeah. So, I mean, you just got to give a ton of credit to Chicho for the shot. This dude has been absolutely incredible all season. Definitely the league leader in goals at this point after the hat trick last night. And it was a perfect shot. Doesn't mean Stuver didn't make an error, because he did.
Yes. Yeah. I'm with you. 24th minute here. Austin wins a throw. I mean, there are RSL still, again, I think in control of everything here. One of the announcers last night, I thought, said some really some things that made it evident about how little these announcers actually know about how the league works, how the salary cap works, how the transfer window works. Talking about maybe Bukhari can come in and give us minutes in 2 weeks. It's like, okay, man.
Yeah, we wish, brother.
Yeah, but
Get this guy.
They did say something in the first half. I don't think it was right here, but saying that Austin was basically second best in everything. And I think I agree with that. At the point, second best on the night in everything. Does that not make sense? I see you making it
compared to RSL.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
okay.
Across the board, we're not doing anything better than them.
I mean, yeah, we were probably third after the Ball Boys.
Well, so here, Austin wins a throw in their own half in the 24th minute. But Gallagher immediately turns it over, and Chicho pounces on this deflected ball, turns quickly upfield. He plays Anderson Julio into the Austin area, and then he slots home the second goal. And you look at the replay, the pass from Chicho to Anderson Julio, nutmeg, the shot from Anderson Julio into the net, nutmeg. And when you get styled on like that, 2-0, 24th minute, you're not feeling great.
Nope. The wheels really start to come off the old Verde bus here.
Yeah.
This is just, again, a dominating performance by RSL. And they put it on us, and they deserve to win as much as they did. And this was just, I mean, again, we just couldn't find the identity of the shape that we were trying to play. We could not alleviate their high press. We could not escape the pressure. We could not string more than 2 or 3 passes together. And when you do that versus a team that's as good as RSL, they proved that they should be at the top of the table. I remember last week saying that this was, even despite anticipating being out without number 10, that this would be a litmus test to kind of see where you're at in regard to the higher quality teams in the Western Conference. And we failed this test. Absolutely.
28th minute, Salt Lake turns Austin over again. And then the trio of Andres Gomez, Anderson Julio, and then Chicho Arango connect on what I can only deem a beautiful set of passes. Watching these guys work last night was, again, I think fun for everybody not wearing Austin colors. Stuver makes a point blank save here on Chicho. Again, I think this is, again, Stuver did not have the worst night possible, but he did make mistakes that led to this thing snowballing right here, though. Again, I think showing some of his class, because Chicho right now for me, and maybe this is just recency bias, to me, he's the MVP, because I know there's a lot of stats coming out of Inter Miami specifically with their number 10, but the two rosters are nowhere close the same to me in terms of their quality, and like what Chicho's doing right now. Added 4 more contributions, I think, to his total last night. So he's on 25 goal contributions. He's either with or slightly above Messi in less. Well, I think Messi has probably played less games, but I don't know, man. I think this guy's the MVP for me halfway through the season.
Been the class of the league up until this point for sure. Really the motor for that team.
Yeah. Flag was up on that anyways, but the dam has just burst at this point. 30 seconds later, Anderson Julio is in behind Stuver again on the break. He gets it past Brad, who got a touch to it with his thigh, but it's dribbling towards that goal line, and Johnny G saves it off the line. But again, just wave after wave hitting Austin, and RSL's confidence is sky high. These guys have all the swagger in the world to them right now.
Really just holding on for dear life at this point in time, and there's not much left to grasp onto. Johnny, sloppy all night. Very, very sloppy. Both of the quote-unquote wingbacks were terrible on the ball. Yeah. A bunch of turnovers, some forced, some unforced. And again, it just felt like this was going to get out of hand pretty quick with how fast they were coming at us.
Yeah, well, and it continues here, 31st minute. So again, we've maybe 1 or 2 passages of play before we're back into the notes here. And Austin actually does get out onto a break. Obi and Rubio with Danny trailing the play. Obi eventually tries to set Danny up from right to left as Danny was coming into the penalty area, but that pass slightly behind him and nothing doing. Danny tries to absorb some contact and get a penalty call there. I think official correctly kind of waves that off. We're going the other way. Austin actually gets back onto the ball, but then turns it over once again at the back, starts a 5-on-4 break. Andres Gomez hits Anderson Julio right on the goal line for what just feels like an alley-oop, right? Yeah, like when you're just catching it on the backside for the dunk. Flag goes up, but the video assistant reverses it after a review. Goal counts 3-0 here, just about a half hour in.
Yeah.
It's like I just keep tossing it back to you like, here, E, talk about this shitty thing that happened.
And this is why we don't want to get into track meets with teams. And this is why we want to be on the road, being able to control the ball and not be getting into track meets with teams like this, of this caliber. And they sped us up all night long. We were not playing in our comfort zone. And again, the speed on full display of Julio and Gomez, just two attacking players that are absolutely fantastic. Tough.
First minute of stoppage here. Danny picks up a yellow card for a foul on Anelli. Looked like it wasn't necessarily just that foul. His official came over, is counting off, this is your 3rd or 4th foul here. So Danny, in the notes I initially had, okay, Danny's going to miss the Colorado game due to yellow card accumulation. And then this morning, realizing that this fucker's going to Copa America, and so he's just going to miss the next match when he comes back. So add 1 onto the tally of games we will miss from Danny Pereira here after Copa America. And again, when we talk about the outlook going forward, this is just another little like thorn in our side.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know he's frustrated. I know that this game is pretty much out of hand at this point. But
it was after that. It was after that 3rd goal, right?
Yeah.
Everybody started losing their hand.
Yeah, everyone loses their cool. Rubio's bitching like crazy. Hot Air's bitching like crazy, taking some.
He's kicking that guy out.
Dirty fouls, and it's like, yes, fellas, this game has gotten away from us. We are not going to secure points in this, more likely than not. But you still have to understand that we need you going forward and everything. And Danny, like, there's just. This isn't even a play where it's like we need you to take a hard foul or do something out of the ordinary to try to like dispossess so we can stay alive, stay afloat. And now we're going to miss you for an entire another game. It's just, it hurts. And, and this was something that is mostly in his control. There's no need to try to do a hard foul here. It's just not called for.
Yeah. 5th minute of stoppage here. Austin concedes a corner just before half. They clear it out, but not past that, those 2 or 3 RSL players sitting back. So they swing it right back to where it came from on the right side. And Brody has all the time in the world here to pick out Chicho Arango on that back post. Stuver gets a hand to this shot too, this little volley attempt, but too much power on it. And I'm not sure what John Kolmanich is doing here. I know that the right side is foreign to him, but this to me looks like, again, there are multiple factors in how this ball gets back to Brody and how open he is, etc. But just focusing on the cross to the goal itself, to me, this is Kolmanich should have followed Chicho. And even if he follows him, man, like he still might get beat. But
Probably.
It makes it so much more glaring when he just stops and continues to mark the guy who stays on the outside of the box. And also just like, is it a problem with the whole team? Because it feels like we get beat a lot on that left post when it comes from right to left, whether it's Johnny, whether it's Hector, whether it's Kolmanich over there. That just it feels like a weak point to me in the defense.
Yep, it definitely is. It's something that other teams attack and exploit. Kolmanich, I have no idea what he's doing here. It's just, I mean, that's one of the things where you go into film the next day and you see yourself in that moment and you realize just how terribly you've fucked up in that situation. And for him not to just like even react is crazy. Like we saw 2 dudes bounce off Chicho earlier. Like, you know what I mean? So like Kolmanich probably is going to get cooked regardless. But like when we talk about the things that we've appreciated about this team, when we look at even in some of the games that haven't gone our ways, the positives, the fight, the discipline, that was not on display last night. And that's the most concerning thing for me right now. Yeah. Outside of what's to come here, because I'm going to keep preaching it. We are definitely in the danger zone. I don't know when you asked me that question about how many points I would be satisfied with
coming into the last week.
With the last, and I said 1, and we're sitting on 1 right now from those 3. And it doesn't feel as good knowing what's, about to be around this corner here.
Yeah. Well, we said further context provided, and we'll talk about that context here in a little bit. So 4-0 at the half. I'm glad you brought up Chicho and that physicality, because that was something I didn't remember to notate here, but just a little bit visibly shocking to watch a guy like Johan Valencia go in for a challenge and just bounce off. No effect. Chicho keeps going. I don't remember who the other guy was. I think it might have been Diego Rubio or Alex Ring. Somebody else who's like a little bit, it wasn't like Hodder or Danny going in there. Some of those smaller guys. But yeah, man, coming out of the half, double change here. You get Heinzike on for Julio Cascante. So we do get a game towards getting Julio off that yellow card warning. Of course, he is also headed to Copa America in all likelihood with Costa Rica. And then you do get Owen Wolf in for John Kolmanich. And I think if there's one thing we can take away from this game with 100% certainty, it's that John Kolmanich is not a winger.
No, no, he is not. Man, he just looked completely out of place all night. Looked like he was wearing his own uniform. And I don't think that's solely on him. I think, But again, we have preached, it's all hands on deck right now. Like we're asking guys to play out of position, move out of position. Owen takes flack for doing that, even though he's doing his job
and doing it
appropriately. This is the example of somebody who can't do their job appropriately when you're asking too much of them. And we asked too much of him, and that doesn't excuse his lack of effort and or confidence on the ball. But they knew that he was going to be a weak point. They pressed the shit out of him.
Yeah.
They were.
I wonder if somebody, he's a U22 initiative. He's a young guy. I wonder if somebody needs to call CPS for Jean because we're playing him out of position or something. I don't know.
What a concerned citizen.
Shit, yeah. 2 changes for RSL as well. Barajas and Palacio come in for Gomez and Anelli. So kind of human victory cigars coming in here at the half. You can take out Andres Gomez up 4-0. 54th minute, we also get Gallagher. Looked like he kind of pointed to the sideline like, all right, I'm done. And he's coming off the groin injury, so I wouldn't have been shocked to pull him at halftime either. But Hector Jimenez comes in for John Gallagher after a yellow card. to Alex Ring. And then 63rd minute here, there was a little passage of Austin momentum able to, and I don't know, man, again, I think bringing in Owen Wolf showed the difference in terms of like how we are able to string more passes together and hold the ball up a little bit. Like you look at Owen, he was the hub for the offense in the second half. And again, you don't get a ton out of it, but the game state, you're already down. They're sitting back. They're not taking any chances. He received the most progressive passes in the game, 7 of our 25 total, and he only played half the match. Yep. Again, this goes back to some of those stats we were looking at about 6 weeks ago, where how good he is, especially when Seba is not in there. He's somebody we got to have out there. And I think I expect going up against a team like Minnesota later in the month that is going to employ that high press, whether or not we have Seba healthy for a game like that. Like, this is why we played Owen against high pressing teams last year, trying to be a little bit more resistant, putting him and Danny in that midfield. And again, it's still a jumbled midfield. We're still going to need help on the wing at that point. But I don't know, man. I thought there was some points in this second half where you can really highlight, like, this is why 33 is out there and out there as much as he is when we're such a team that's lacking so much depth in crucial areas. I don't know, man. I thought Owen came in and played well, even setting aside what happens near the end of the match.
Yeah. And, you look at the second half, and if you could just try to look at the second half in its own sort of state of being, we were not terrible in that second half. And obviously their players are off. This game is in hand. They've made their substitutions. They've taken their foot off the pedal, but I did see some things from the second half that were encouraging. And again, I want to highlight that this team still continued to fight. I want to salute Alex Ring for how hard he played throughout the entire course of the game, even though it was a very frustrating game. And he has been known to lose his cool at times. And of all the people who were very much losing their cools all over the place, Biru gets into it with Palacio later. Hot Air, like we talked about, taking some stupid fouls. Danny getting a little upset. Rubio, man, this is now several weeks in a row where his anger is becoming detrimental. It's getting the best of him. So that's another concerning thing. But yes, I think that was a good point about Owen. And overall in the second half, it was much better than the first. Not that it could have been much worse.
Yeah. So again, things still tilted in Salt Lake's favor pretty much all over the pitch here. But Austin has generated some, and I actually put quotation marks around chances. It's just like we get a set piece where we can lob a ball in there and see if somebody gets their head to it. We win a corner or something like that. But we also get 2 subs here, Hidalgo and Oviedo, in for Anderson, Julio, and Catranis. Salt Lake has a corner here, and it's cleared out to the feet of Danny. Then he and Obi take off on a little 2-on-2 counter. He plays Obrian in very nicely in behind, and Obi is gone. And then good on Obrian here. Hodder slots it right past McMath, and it's 4-1. And so, we got a little bit of life in the room where we're watching. No, I don't think any of us thought, oh, here's it. That's 1, 3 more. But it's like, we got some life here. There's about 25 minutes to go, and maybe we can get another one. And again, try to get some good things going headed into the international break. Then we're lined up, though, to get it kicked back off, and head officials listening. And they start looking at replays, and so then they're reviewing a handball off this initial corner. And, man, it ultimately gets ruled a penalty here. Chicho puts it past Stuver. So instead of being 4-1, it's fucking 5-0. And, man, I think this, to me, and I know I'm biased, to me, this is a bullshit call. Like, we've talked about at length when handballs either go our way or don't over the course of this podcast, that, like, we're not quite sure exactly what a handball is. It seems to kind of have loose ends on the definition, but I think that this review goes against the spirit of the rule to me, because this ball comes whipped in off the corner. I think Justin Glad is the one who gets his head to it. Him and Hector kind of converge, and that ball bounces down and like skims off the top of Brandon Heinzeich's forearm, and he's jumping to try to head the ball himself. his hands below, or his arm is below his shoulder. I don't think that is an unnatural position to be going up to challenge a ball that's coming in from the corner, and it's not going towards net, and it falls to the feet of Danny. I don't get it, man. I just think this goes against the spirit of the rule. I thought it was a bullshit call. I thought it should have been 4-1 at that point, but again, it wasn't changing the outcome of the game. It was just like a triple gut punch, because then you're putting another goal past Stuver and hurting his numbers even more. So I don't know. I was not happy.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really do anything but laugh in that moment, just given the absurdity of what just happened, and again, we weren't, there were some sarcastic cheers from where we were watching over at your place. But still, you want to make it respectable. You don't want to get your ass beat 5-0. And, so I don't know. I agree. I don't see how this impacts the play. It does pop up to Diego first, who passes that ball to Danny.
Good.
But so I guess maybe they can make an argument that he wouldn't have been able to get to that ball if it didn't bounce off BHI's arm. But again, he's jumping, his arms below his shoulders. He's not even looking over there. It was just, at this point, we're not getting punched in the gut anymore. We're getting hit elsewhere.
And it's just, and the psychological aspect of having that one on the board, I just think does so much for you.
I agree.
And after all that, man, that was an 8-minute passage of sub ridiculous. To corner to goal to review to pen to goal.
Ridiculous.
So at the end of that, or I guess 78th minute here, actually, you get Gozo in for Chicho, so he takes his leave. Then Zardes in for Rubio and CJ in for Obi. 82nd minute, you've got Biru and Palacio coming together on the far sideline after some contact. Both of them literally headbutt each other. And then the little headbutt to head shake. Very, very primal there. I like to see that kind of fight there, because I didn't think that was Biru being dirty or anything. It was those guys had some contact. Neither one liked it. They didn't do anything outrageous. Both get yellow carded for coming together there. But I like to see that fight and that frustration from Biru, as you should. Yeah. You should be frustrated and not take exception to something like that. I think I'm fine with it.
Yeah, he didn't back down. He didn't do anything crazy. Didn't do anything stupid. He just didn't back down. He wasn't going to let the guy punk him like that. So I understand it on both sides, and I'm glad they both got yellows. And you just walked away from it. So
84th minute, there's a yellow card to Brian Vera, who took out Zardes near the midfield line. And in the first minute of stoppage time, Alex Ring steps in front of a pass in the RSL defensive third. And all of a sudden, Austin, a 5-on-4 break here late on. Alex hits Pepe. He turns to his right, slips Owen Wolf in behind. And Owen Wolf sees Oviedo kind of charging in behind him, steps in front of the ball to shield it, takes the contact, goes down. And wins the penalty. So Alex Ring steps up. He sneaks it past McMath. I think it was our buddy Paul who I saw say that's how you pass it into the net on a penalty. So 5-1, and that's the final. Second time in 6 games that Owen Wolf has come off the bench to win a penalty from a losing position.
Again, just 3 this year, right? I'm pretty sure he's got 3.
I think you might be right.
I'm fairly certain. He got one earlier in this year, too. But that was a veteran play. Cheeky move, kind of position your body where it's the only way for that defender to get to the ball is to go through you. And smart, heady in the moment. And cheers to Alex for netting that, because it would have been really, really terrible. If we have a PK chance to get one and we end up screwing that up as well. But the better team won. The better team won convincingly, and that's what it is.
39% possession for Austin, 21 shots to 8 in favor of RSL, 11 shots on target to 3 in favor of RSL. Austin had 2 big chances, 1 missed, 4 corners to 2 in favor of Salt Lake, 3.85 XG on Fatmom's model for Salt Lake. Actually, we just got the recalc for that. 3.9 XG for RSL, 1.26 for Austin. Expected goals on target, 4.07 for RSL, the same 1.26 for Austin. 32 touches for RSL in the Austin penalty area, which we know is something that the coaching staff looks at. Can't be too happy with that. I would imagine that is the most probably touches in our box from an opponent this season. Because they just kind of did whatever they wanted on offense. And a 65% field tilt at the end of it all in favor of Salt Lake. And then, like we said, Danny's suspended when he comes back from the Copa America, which I believe will be the NYCFC match if Venezuela does not make it out of the group stage. So same can be said for Diego Rubio if he makes it with the Chileans, and Julio if he makes it with Los Ticos. Julio still needs 3 more appearances without a caution to get off of the warning. Rubio still needs 4 because, again, he just got back on warning, and Johan needs 2. Anything else for you on those stats or this game as a whole? Because then we can dive into some of what Phil got out of the press conference.
I mean, all in all, it's one game. It's an ass whooping. It's a terrible showing. It's a poor outing, at every single level of the club, from player down to coach, down to everyone who was participated in that. But still, it's one game. Now, with that being said, you do look to this month of June and the 4 games that we have. You visit Colorado, you host LAFC, you visit Minnesota, and you visit Sporting Kansas City. And it starts to really take shape that even though we're sitting currently 7th, 6th, that, with how jumbled this table can be with the teams that are below us with games in hand, that we're going to need to secure probably 4 points in that month to try to stay afloat and where we want to be on that playoff line. Again, some of these teams are going to cannibalize one another, just given the beast that the Western Conference is right now. So I am definitely a little more concerned outside of just saying it was one game, but that's because of what's coming to this team. We even went as far as to look at who these other clubs would be missing for Copa America. And it's not that impactful as it is for us. We're already pretty thin, dwindled numbers. So it's going to be an interesting and challenging month for this team. And, I hope that they can put this one in the rear view and just get ready for what's coming, because it's going to hit us fast and hard.
Yeah. I think the break's got to be a welcome sight for this team, whether or not they break out this week strong or not, whether or not you beat Portland or drew Portland or lost to Portland at home. This is a team that needs a breather. Couple of things that coach had to say that Alex Ring, again, who was wearing the armband last night, had to say. Coach Wolf said they are a good team, talking about Salt Lake. He said, I think that's the first thing. The record bears that. The quality that they have shows that, regardless of if it's at Salt Lake City or at home, we can't beat ourselves. We've prided ourselves this year on we know we've got to play as close to mistake-free soccer as we can. We have some limitations in our group. There's travel fatigue, all that, but the mistakes that we make and some of the decisions and giveaways that are costly, and they're extremely costly against a good team. You can't beat yourself in this league. You just have to do better. It was not good enough, not anywhere close to good enough. And I agree. I think that's a pretty easy thing to say, all of that.
Yes, that's not really reaching too far into the old coach speak bag there. What it is. We lost to a better team, got our ass beat, and sometimes, that happens to you. You got to dust yourself off, bounce back up, and realize there's a full half of the season to go, and plenty of time, and plenty of things are going to change and move. This roster is going to look completely, not completely different, but this roster will look different. And I know that, I guess, one ultra shining positive reach is that, we were looking at Julio and Gomez and just wait till we get our Usman here, and what he's going to be able to unlock, just the way that those young players do for RSL. So hats off to them. Congratulations on the win. Go fuck yourself.
Alex Ring said, we need a couple of guys to get healthy. Wish the guys who go represent their country all the best. It's time for us to regroup, recover, get away from it for a little bit. And man, we got business when we come back. I mean, you got to bounce back from something like this. It's hard to find the words. Honestly, he said, in this little break, we have seen guys being injured and whatnot. Us being thin should not be an excuse for the way we performed. in the first time. I think everyone knows that and needs to have a good hard look in the mirror, because that was not worthy of representing this club for sure. Today we got humbled, and you have to learn from it. So that feels like fairly almost a mirror image of what the coach just said. So it's good to see that kind of takeaway, that those guys are in alignment with that, the sky is not falling. The season is not over. We've got this break to kind of get our minds right, work on some stuff, and come back healthy and ready to go for the second half of the season here. Really, this stretch between now and that Leagues Cup break, which obviously unless you make some miraculous run, which I don't think any of us expect, you'll get another break then at the beginning of August. But plenty more of that from Coach, from Alex Ring in Phil West Substack there. Verde all day. Go subscribe to Phil if you have not yet. Taking just a little bit more of a look, extend our conversation for a few minutes here about what's coming ahead. I know you talked about us looking at the potential inactives, or the guys that are unavailable for our opponents later in June. And nothing really of note. I think Dane St. Clair will be gone for Minnesota, but outside of that, looks like most guys will be back or not leaving at all for these opponents. 3 of the next 4 on the road here in June, and that one home match is the middle of a double game week with LAFC coming to town. So again, I think looking ahead, and I know it's still about 2 weeks until we get back in action here, but I'll ask you as I did coming into the last game week, where you said we need 1 point, and I think you were kind of proven right there. You get 1 point. The week does not go at all how you planned, how you expected it to, but you're still sitting in 6th place. Again, just like we said in the midweek, this is why it's so important, or it was so important for the team to bank some of the unexpected points that they did earlier in the season. Because, you place this RSL match somewhere else in the first half of the season, and I think you're still feeling fantastic about where this team is, kind of in a vacuum, right? Because now talking about the context that has been provided here, right? Like Seba not healthy, lower half soft tissue issues have been a problem for him for more than a year now. And the schedule just doesn't look that favorable. Like, even though SKC is at the end of the month, that's on the road. Road is not easy for anybody in this league, no matter where you're playing. Any other thoughts on that? Or I guess maybe how many points of these possible 12 do we need? And I think you said 3 or 4 a minute ago. So is that 3 or 4 is your answer? 4?
I'm going to stick with 4.
Okay.
Because I think again, even though it's on the road, I think you have to beat SKC. They are pretty much buried at this point. They're a run. I guess they did it last year, but at this point in time, it doesn't seem very probable. So to me, you have to win that road game and then try to find a point somewhere else. If it's at home versus LAFC, wonderful. We understand how large of an ask that is. I do think we could steal a point versus Colorado. But again, playing in the elevation on the road, difficult place to play. Minnesota has been consistent all season long. You see where they're sitting at in the table with 2 games on hand, or in hand on the field. So, for me, it's 4 points. And, at the beginning of the week, or the beginning of this 3-game stretch here, we were sitting in 2nd, right? Then dropped to 5 or 3rd to 5.
I don't think we've been above 3rd yet. I think it was 3rd after SKC.
So 3rd to 5 to 6. So you didn't really, you didn't lose a ton of ground. But again, we want to stay out of that wild card matchup. So I think it's 4 points for me. I haven't been able to look at the other teams and who they have coming up, but they will cannibalize one another. But when you get an opportunity to take an SKC team at home and get a full 3 points, that is huge, because now you start to look at a 7-game sample size where we haven't won. And, our last 3 matches with these 4 difficult and challenging games coming up, given our limitations with the roster, given the injuries, given the guys who are going to be absent, you could be looking at a 7-game winless streak, which is the type of drought that really then starts to put the pressure and the heat on you to make up some ground in the later months of the summer. So, we're in the danger zone for sure. I loved what Alex had to say. Everyone on this team needs to just step away for a little bit, regather themselves, center themselves again, and get ready for what's to come, because we're going to need guys to really step up. We really are, because it's going to be even more so all hands on deck.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you on the 4 points there to close out June. Just get to 27, because then in July, before that Leagues Cup break, I believe you've got 4 matches, with 3 of them being at home.
Yep.
And I know we're really looking ahead. And that's one thing that the team is not going to do, is look past Colorado on the 15th. But NYCFC feels a little bit different than it did 6 weeks ago. Seattle, the same thing. They will continue to get healthy. Charlotte at the end of that month, Dallas now on the road. It's going to be, a bumpy ride coming into that summer transfer window on July 18th. But again,
we've set ourselves.
I still have belief that this team is going to hang around to the point where, again, we're competing the rest of the year. But you definitely don't feel as good as you did 10 days ago.
You can't. And then you still look at this game last night, and you have to take everything into consideration about what happened, the way they scored their first goal, who wasn't out there for us, the fatigue that came into play. So all of those things are factors. They're not excuses. They're not end all be alls, but this team has set themselves up for success. And again, I would question anybody who, outside of Primo, who had this team sitting at 6th at the halfway point of the season. Like, if you said it early on, show me the receipts. Like, I would love to see those. So, it's a difficult moment, but I hope everyone who is a fan of this club can also take a step back, take a long look at this, take a breather, understand that we have put ourselves in a position to be exactly where we wanted to be. And that has been the goal all season. So sky is still not falling, but we are entering a very dangerous time.
Yeah, and I think another thing that makes me feel good too is a lot of these teams have a game, or in some cases 2 in hand. But even if everybody that has a game in hand or 2 on us wins all of those games, we can only fall to 7th here at the midway point, which again is just a testament to what this team did over the first half of the season. So I think if we continue to talk about this, we're just going to go in circles. So unless you have anything else to add, we can go ahead and move on.
I'll allow it.
All right. So closing out the pod today, last business day, actually FCito, I think, kicking off like right now. But before we talk about that for a second, let's just check in on
the best keeper in the world.
Damian Lawson, Louisville City in action yesterday afternoon against Miami FC, and they come away with a 2-1 victory. Got a penalty called in their favor late on there for the road win. I did not see this game or the goal conceded, but I did hear through our buddy Trevor, who is a Louisville fan himself, that the Damian didn't cover himself in glory on the one goal he let in. I believe it was a punch attempt that kind of went awry. But again, you come out of there, Damian still 3 saves on the night. Louisville gets another win. Damian did pick up a yellow, but Louisville now into first place in USL, still with a game in hand on the Charleston Battery, who are in second, but 29 points from their 12 matches played, a plus 24 goal differential. All things considered, I think you look at that body of work, obviously that is a very good team, but I think Damian doing pretty well, again, on paper.
Yes, I agree. I wish I've had more time to see him and, actually see what the form looks like. But obviously this Louisville team is very, very talented, and I'm happy that Damian is having plenty of success with them.
So FCito, again, I think just got underway out there in Utah, taking on Real Monarchs. We talked about this match a little bit in the midweek. So next Sunday, we can recap this one. But the lineup kind of interesting here. You've got Cervantes in goal. We saw Tony Gomez get hurt last game, so he is inactive. It also looks like we've got a inactive for Alonso Ramirez. So Gavin Wolf starting alongside Sal Mazzaferro. I'm going to be interested to go watch some of this here when we shut it down on episode 148. Bonachera and De Anda as the fullbacks. Looks like Steve Louijean at the 6. Irvin Torres, Bobo, Jimmy, Micah, and Pinot round out the 11. Bench of Alstrup, Ariano, Miller, Reyna, Spadafora, and he's alive, Anthony Garcia active for this team today. So again, that's something we've been waiting for. Get some of that wing depth back. I'm also interested to watch Garcia.
Is this Cervantes' job?
I think it is at the moment. Yeah.
It's looking like it's his job going forward. Really, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't think we've really seen a ton that makes me think this is not a job that they're still competing for, or not competing for, rather. I would not be surprised to see this as a Pinot AOC type of battle throughout the season, where these guys are just, unless one of them catches a good run of form with the results from the team. I don't think Cervantes has done anything to me to be like, oh, he's just clear cut. A notch above Alstrup. We've still only allowed 13 goals in here in 10 matches played. But yeah, I don't know. It's one to watch. And the wings are also something to watch now, I think, with one of the Garcias back healthy. And you would think Chris coming at some point.
Yeah. Is this Gavin's debut?
I believe so, yeah.
15.
15, maybe 16 now, but still.
I think he was born in August.
Oh, yeah. You might be right.
Yeah, August 27th. So
there you
15.
go.
We got a 15-year-older out there. All right, we like it. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so we'll recap that match next Sunday, and then closing it out here with the nonsensey. I have not tallied up the bets. The eyeball test late last night looked like we're probably coming in around even this week. And then best ball, Atlanta and Charlotte currently going right now. So we don't have the full best ball update, but barring just a explosion of fantasy scoring in that one, I can tell you no matter what here, we are Austin TV going to win the week. 67 points right now, 21 from Chicho, 15 from Jordi Alba, 11 from Denny Buwanga, and 8 from Lloris. So 67 for We Are Austin TV. Again, barring the scoring outburst there in Atlanta, Verde Pendant looking like the last place team on the week right now. So we could see We Are Austin closing that gap. We could potentially see the North End making up some more points on Phil West in 4th, maybe putting some more distance between ourselves and Texas Ring of Fire in the spoon race there. It seems like we are now kind of congealing into two groups, where there's the top 3 here with Verde Pendant, We Are Austin, and Moon Tower, and then Phil's injury-plagued roster right now, dragging him down to the depths with us and Texas Ring of Fire. But again, we still have half a season to go, and transfer window draft coming up here in about 6 weeks.
Well, at least our team's been consistently shit. You don't have to worry yourself too much about us climbing up the ranks there.
Yeah. So that'll do it for the nonsense here this week. Anything else for you before we get out of here on episode 148? I think.
No, let's get out of here, man.
I think we could take a little screenshot of what we both just did with me having my hands to the side of my face. You big exhale. We will take multiple deep breaths here over the next week, and we will be back next Sunday recapping FCito's matchup against Real Monarchs. Checking their schedule here right now, recapping their home match against Rapids 2. That is on Friday. So no preview for that, but the preview, no preview. We might just go to that game. So we'll have 2 FCito recaps. We'll recap all the Austin FC news of the week, and of course, have a little bit of the nonsense as well. Need to check in on our team points draft here at the halfway mark. Yeah, I actually have that calculated. It's very close, but we'll have a couple good takes, couple good draft picks, and we'll be able to laugh at ourselves as well. all of that on Sunday's episode next week. So everybody, enjoy your week, right? Enjoy the week off. You can take a little breather from Austin FC as well, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Again, coming in for a landing there in that summer transfer window, but is inching ever closer. Enjoy the beginning of your week. We will do the same, and we'll see you back here on Sunday for another edition of the North End Podcast. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.